Good morning, everyone. This is Jeffy Kennedy, author of Epic Fantasy Romance. I'm here with my first cup of coffee. Ah, Today is, say it with me, people, it is Friday. Woohoo! December 13th, Friday the 13th. And full disclosure, this is not my first cup of coffee. It's actually my third cup of coffee, which I almost never do. Um, it's probably a detail that doesn't matter to you all, but my coffee is typically I do Nespresso, and so I have one caffeinated pod and one decaf pod, plus a little stevia because I don't get to do my lattes anymore for reasons. If you've been listening for a long time, you've been through this saga. Um, so maybe I should revisit that because I'm not sure that. It's really made that much difference anymore. I seem to be at this very steady place. Anyway, um, I already had two of these and I'm having a third, which is very unusual for me. But this morning I did a follow up on that Becca Syme author business summit deal that I did a little while back. She wanted us all to percolate on the what we got out of it for a while, and then she answered questions this morning, and it was at 7 a.m. Mountain Time, which normally I think you all know is not a problem for me, but gentle reader, I woke up at 6:30. So I had this whole plan that I would do my normal waking up around 5 and I would do my yoga and put on my makeup and be all ready to go at 7. And this obviously did not happen. And I confess I waffled as I lay there in bed, blearily looking at the clock saying it was 6:29 actually, thinking, can I turn this around? Do I want to turn this around? Is it that important? And I thought, well, I won't tell you all the things I thought. You know how that is, like where you're trying to make a decision and you're like, oh, well, I'm committed to doing yoga first thing. This yoga that I've been doing, the hatha yoga, you're supposed to do the exercises before sunrise, which is normally not a problem for me and wouldn't have been a problem this morning since the sun is rising at, let us see here. I actually have a sunrise app on my phone. I think that might be kind of freaky of me, but I like to know. Yeah, sun is rising at 7:05 these days, so I could have done it pretty easily, and I've been hitting it most days. But I thought, well, this is an unusual opportunity, and it won't change that much to not do the yoga this morning. Although I found that I really missed it, so that was interesting. And of course, I thought, well, and I don't have to be cute for the call. I can put on makeup for the podcast afterwards. So I'm glad I did it. I thought, um, yeah, it was good for me to revisit. And I did ask one of my major questions, which I think you all would be interested in, which is about taking time off. And I think when I talked about taking this business summit before and figuring out that I'm phase 5, that I'm in this mature business phase, and that one of the biggest takeaways was, at least for me, reviewing the slides, I realized that there were other things that are good takeaways for me that I can implement. And it's so funny that it was like the time off thing struck me so hard. It almost obliterated everything else, eclipsed everything else, which is probably why she wants us to go back and review. Uh, because some things that she talks about are um, eliminating expenses and doing sort of refining what I'm doing so that I'm doing only the things that only I can do, which is really writing the books, maybe some of the um, social media. Oh, And I have a number of things I want to talk about because my mind is full of this, but we have the cover. We have the cover for Never the Roses. It is done. And I'm super happy with it. I just gave the thumbs up to it yesterday. So it's been fun for me lately because with editor Allie being back, we are just, like I'm talking to Sarah, my agent, almost daily, texting or emailing, and there's so many things. There are exciting things. I got invited to Phoenix Confusion in June. And so one of the things I'm looking at is so like Phoenix Confusion will pay my travel and my expenses, my lodging. And I'm considering canceling some of the other reader cons where I'm having to shell out my own money, which is interesting because this actually segues back into this mature business phase stuff of cutting expenses. And I can kind of see that, like after a while, you don't have to keep fronting your own money. uh, or it's easy to keep adding things, and sometimes it's good to pare things back. But one of the questions I asked in this I guess it was Author Business Summit, was focusing on this idea of taking time off. And I've been thinking about it a lot. And so I asked Becca the question this morning because many of you know, if you've been listening to me for a long time, you know that I am hugely into sustainable productivity, right? That's like what I call some of my coaching efforts and so forth. And one of the things about is if I take a break, even though I have this fantasy, like I did have this fantasy for a long time that I would like finish writing a book and then like take a month vacation, usually involving a villa on the Mediterranean. And so there were many things that interfered with this particular fantasy. Um, One of the biggest, ironically enough, maybe it's not ironic. I really hate that I never know when to use ironic. Um, but I don't even know what it is enough. You will follow me here. Uh, is that I don't know exactly when I'm going to finish a book. And so planning for that moment, like planning a vacation, right? If I don't have the book done and the vacation is planned, then that's stressful. And then if I have finished the book like a couple weeks before the vacation is planned, then that's annoying because I want to start the next project. So, I mean, other than no one offering me a villa on the Mediterranean, which is an obstacle, and I feel like you all have really let me down in this department. I don't feel like I ask that much of all of you, but that was like one thing you could have done for me. um, but the timing. And so, you know, the thing is like taking a whole chunk of time off worries me because worries, yeah, it's concerns me because I do know from all of these years, these many years, what is it, like 12 years now, something like that, of tracking my productivity. Yeah, 12 years now, since 2012. Um, I know that when I take a significant chunk of time off from writing, it really throws me down productivity wise. I lose momentum and it takes a long time to build that back up again. Um, and I was really thinking about this and thinking, like how much of that is my perception? But, I can look at the charts, I can look at the data, and it's a real thing. Um, Even though I say I write every day, I do take weekends off. And that seems to be pretty sustainable. Um, and I do want to try to work in some more vacation time. Some of you may recall that, like in September, I did go away for, just like an overnight at a local resort. And that was a wonderful break. I loved doing that. And I think I might do more of those things. But I was very concerned, like, am I doing it wrong? Here's this pain point of taking time off if you're in phase five. And so I asked Becca this question, and explained. And she had a great considered response. She's so experienced. And so she's talked to so many people. She really does give great answers. And if I haven't said so before, I do recommend that you take some of her classes and she has a lot of free videos up too that are very helpful. But she said that in reading my question, that she wasn't hearing it being driven by fear, which is the biggest concern there, is that people worry about, if I stop doing this, it's all going to fall apart and who knows what will happen. And she said instead that my question was data driven, which, I mean, I did feel kind of proud of myself, because you all know that I'm data driven. I'm the spreadsheet queen for a reason. And one thing that I like to do in romance is, when people ask me, like, how can you show that the couple are really meant for each other, that, this sort of organic belief in their love, is that the people appreciate in the other the things that they most value in themselves. Because I do think that there are few things better than that in life, than when the thing that you maybe even secretly love best about yourself, or something that you really value in yourself, when someone else recognizes that. That's It's such a validating thing. And so even in a situation like this, where she is like, your question sounds very data driven, and it's like, that's right, it is data driven. So basically she said that it was okay, that if the current system is working for me, like, I've learned how to guard against burnout. She said if burnout's not a problem and it's okay for you to take short breaks, then, you know go for it. And so that made me feel much better. I do want to try to incorporate more into vacations, but this whole idea that I need to take a huge chunk of time off. And one of the other authors that was in this, who's also phase five, I won't say her author name, but it's someone you would recognize, but don't want to invade her privacy. But she said that she had the exact same thing, that she feels like if she takes off, like, a few days is fine, but if she takes off more than a week from writing, she just loses that momentum. And one of the things I've learned to do is to keep writing. Like, you all know, like, if I'm in Tucson, I go to Starbucks in the morning and write a little bit. As long as I can do some, that seems to help counter the impact of not doing any. One thing I was reflecting on too, that's been, sort of counting my blessings, is that I am very fortunate to have a strong author friend group. Um, Very supportive people, because one of the things about phase five is apparently that you don't have many people you can trust, like, even people you can maybe not trust. This is like when, like, Danielle Steele's uh, accountant ran off with all her money, all of this kind of thing. And you lose friendships. And it's interesting sort of being where I am. I almost want to ask Becca, like, is there anything past phase five? Because I almost feel like I do feel like I've been in phase five for quite a few years now. And apparently that's what happens. You're in phase five. And maybe you can revert back to, like, an earlier phase, but, you might just stay in phase five. But that phase of going through losing friendships, I think you all have heard me talk about that a number of times on here. I've, like, read a couple books on, like, why do we lose friendships and what does it mean? And I thought it was just me. And I think that's why it's useful to do this kind of thing, is to discover that no, actually, this is part of a very common dynamic. Um, a lot of the people who were my author friends um, in those earlier phases, that, I can almost make a list of these people who were very close friends for a while, people who came and stayed at my house uh, and stopped being my friends. And essentially, most of the time, like kind of ghosting, where they just weren't my friend anymore. They just disappeared from my life. And it's when it happens, it's like, well, what did I do? I mean, I know I'm not perfect, but, like, what did I do to that, drive these people away? But it is part of this process that you lose friendships. And, it's interesting because I have this image in my head, this moment that crystallized. Maybe it just represents all of these friendships that I've lost. Uh, and I'm going to counter right now and say all of the friendships that I've gained. I have so many great friendships now. I said I'm fortunate. I want to say I'm lucky that I have these really great friends, people I do trust and do talk to daily. But I think that's part of my connectedness strength, and that I've built that I do put effort into that and believe in that. Give myself credit where that's due, right? Um, but this moment, so there was this one writer who was, and this is true of almost all of them, where she was much farther along in her career. I read her books when I was still, barely published, or maybe not even published yet. We became friends. I visited her. She came to visit me a couple of times, and we were roommates at conferences together for a number of years, to the point where we just assumed we would room with each other. And the last year that we roomed together, a number of weird things happened. And she was kind of in a career transition, and we had a disagreement about something that didn't make sense to me that we disagreed about. Um, and I won't go into the details there, but it was basically something happened to her, and my interpretation of the danger she had been in really upset her, that she didn't agree. Uh, yeah, it was a strange week, and I'm sorry I can't give you more details on that, but it was like I was very concerned for her, and she kind of took that amiss, like I was implying that she had not been careful, right? But I felt like it was no fault of her own. But anyway, she didn't like any of it. We were not really agreeing on what we were trying to do career wise. We were trying to do different things with our careers, traditional publishing versus self publishing, which again I felt like was just sort of like not really agreeing. But it didn't have anything to do with our relationship with each other, right? We all do different things at different times, right? But she was kind of going through a thing. She was pretty upset, and that last morning we were kind of both in the bathroom putting on our makeup and chatting, and I was telling her about something someone had said to me that was weird, and she was kind of giving me funny looks, and I could tell that she didn't sympathize with my, like, do you know what that bitch said to me? And she kind of was not really engaging with me. um, and I thought, well, she's in this weird place. We'd had a funny week together. And so we're getting ready to say goodbye. I've got to go to the airport, and we get in the elevator together, and we're riding down, and she was getting off at a different floor because I was heading down to the street, and she was like getting off at the hotel lobby. And and so we've sort of been saying goodbye until next time and all of this. And she walked out of the elevator and turned around and looked at me, and all of a sudden she stepped forward and opened her mouth like she was going to say something to me, Like, and I could just tell it was like the thing she had not been saying to me the whole morning, and the doors closed. I mean, it's like a moment from a novel, right? And I considered going back up, but I had to catch my car to the airport. And I don't know, it seemed meant to be. And that is the last time we spoke. She never spoke to me again after that, except to write me an email where she told me that she was not going to room with me at the next conference, that she wasn't even sure if she was going to go, and she didn't want me to be waiting on her. And it was kind of a strange, like out of the blue email, except that I also knew that things had been weird between us. And so I was like, okay, I understand if you don't not going to go. And then it turned out later that she did go and she roomed with someone else, but like off site, and she avoided me and didn't tell me. Anyway, it's really weird. And that's a long rambling story, but it's sort of like it's helpful to know that people lose those friendships. And it's just part of the, I did read that essay collection, whose name I always forget. I actually rebought it in hard copy so that I could reference it, because I do reference it often. And now, of course, I have no idea where I shelved it. I have too many books, people. Look at this stack behind me. Anyway, The Friend Who Got Away. It was 20 Women's True Life Tales of Friendships That Blew Up, Burned Out, or Faded Away. I will link to it in the show notes for the few of you who have now been assiduously checking the show notes after I whined about how no one does it. Really, you don't have to. I permission here, permission wand. You don't have to look at the show notes. I'm just amused by that. Yeah. So anyway, it's interesting to read about friendships that end and why. It feels like we talk a whole lot about romantic breakups, but not really friendships. So yeah. Anyway, I probably haven't given you any news on what I'm doing. I should do that a little bit. I'm going along, but I did turn on the book on Friday. You all know about that. I told you about Owl Crate. Now we have the cover, and Sarah got me notes on the book that, okay, here we go, people. It was Bandits. It was the Amethyst Run. It was First Order of the Fey Realms. We have a new submission title, which I adore. Sarah wanted a new one we're going to go on submission with it in January. I'm doing revisions on it, pretty minor. I should make a note to tell you more about that on Monday. But I've given names to the chapters in this book, and I had an inspiration to go look at the chapter names. And so this is one of the chapter names. We probably wouldn't be able to publish it this way because of metadata, but the submission title is Sex, Lies, and Ley Lines, which I adore. So we will probably just refer to that. No matter what title it ends up with, it's going to be called Sex, Lies, and Ley Lines from now on. All right. On that note, I'm going to get back to work on my revision. I hope you all have a fabulous weekend, that you take time off if you want to, and don't if you don't want to. And I will talk to you all on Monday. You all take care. Bye-bye.